I'm Jen Chan. I'm the head of studio for Darkpaw Games. So before head of studio, I was technical director for EQ1, EQ2, the whole franchise. And then before that, I was lead programmer on just EQ1 and EQ2. And then before that, I was a programmer on EQ1. I actually started EQ1 in 2008 as a programmer, and I've been on EQ1 continuously since then. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
nice amount of time.
yeah.
And so you were programming before that, uh,
Yes. Actually, I was not in gaming at all before this. I've been ever since I was a kid, ever since I was like 6 years old, I always wanted to figure out how to get into the gaming industry. But it didn't actually happen until after college and, after I had kind of started a career in other things.
right.
Yeah, before this, I was actually working for a gigantic telecommunications company, 20,000 people worldwide, making. I worked in what was called Predictive Analytics. So I
Okay.
would take the data from the company because we were a spin-off of AT&T. Well, actually, we were a spin-off of a spin-off of AT&T. So we had all the data from when the company used to be part of AT&T, and I would take all the data from, I would say, the 60s. We would take all the data from the 60s and just number crunch and a whole bunch of it's like, hey, you want to do this project? Okay, it's going to be about $2 billion and it's going to be a 20-year project. And you're going to need people here, 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 and here, and they're going to need to have all these expertise. And so I worked in, when you talk about big data, I worked in really big data.
Yeah,
I
massive.
mean, yeah, massive data. And that's actually what I used to do before, coming to work on EverQuest. And then before that, I also had a, early starting career in theater. I was actually a lighting designer.
I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah. So I was a lighting designer, and then I also worked with the local stagehands union. And I did, I don't even remember how many years I worked in theater. So I worked as the local crew for a bunch of big names. Like I worked for David Bowie. I worked for the Backstreet Boys. I worked for
Oh,
REO
rad.
Speedwagon. I also did a ton of musicals, and whatever show came into town, I worked it.
Right
So
on. I
yeah.
once sang Amazing Backstreet Boys at karaoke. It was two companies ago. It was in Germany. Fortunately, I'm hoping their English was not so good, so they didn't know that I was.
Just
Anyways,
making
it
up
was
the lyrics.
fantastic. I wish I had the video, to be honest with you. I'd have a whole nother career.
Oh, a whole other
Um,
career.
yeah. So I'm good, thank you. So the thing that I'm wondering then is, how do you go from like massive data from the
Yeah,
60s? First of all, the
yeah.
fact that there's data from the 60s is mind-boggling. But how do you go from massive data from the 60s to EverQuest?
So actually, who I went to school with, somebody that I went to school with, and we were working on a project together. It was just a joint project between theater and the electrical engineering department.
Okay.
And yeah, it was a crazy joint project because theater had all these projects that needed, we have all these inventions that we need to create in theater, right? Because it's like, hey, that's a really weird situation. How do we solve this problem?
Yeah, for sure.
And then from electrical engineering, they had their senior thesis project, which is, well, there's all these things that we can solve in the world. Let's find a client that can actually, use our engineering talents.
Right.
And so it's a joint project between theater and electrical engineering. And as soon as I heard of it, I was like, oh, I have to be on this. Because I came in from the theater side, but I was
Hmm.
also getting a degree in computer science at the same time.
Which
So,
is actually a nice combo. Honestly, it makes a lot of
yeah,
sense to me.
yeah, it absolutely makes sense. Because back in those days, there wasn't really a whole lot of blend between theater and computer science, right? There wasn't gaming programs. There was, I think,
Right.
one gaming program in the States, one, and it was at where was it? It was at Carnegie Mellon.
Okay.
Yeah, it was at
Yeah.
Carnegie Mellon. It's like I can't afford Carnegie Mellon.
Right. Yeah. No.
Yeah, no way. So yeah. Anyways, so there was this joint project between the theater and electrical engineering departments, and I worked with a guy on the project for years. And then when he left, it's like, hey, if you ever make it into the gaming industry, remember me. I always wanted to get in. I never knew how to get in. I didn't know about GDC. I didn't know. It's like, oh, hey, here's all these ways to get in.
Right.
Because, back at the time, games existed, and I had no idea how to get in.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I go off on my career, doing big data, doing predictive analytics, and then also doing theater, on the side.
Right.
So those were very long years. It was a work a full 8 to 5 at my normal job, and then go home and then start my theater job at like 7 p.m. 7 p.m. until midnight, sometimes 3 a.m., depending on what I was working on.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
I had a small business. I had a skateboard park, and
Yeah.
like I do the skateboard park thing all day, and then come home and just play as much EverQuest as possible. And
Yeah,
then my
yeah.
opening was like, because I was like, I've got to join this company. It was the guide program, and so it was
Oh,
like
wow. Okay.
I would get off like work essentially, even though it was our business. Sometimes I would just sneak in the office that we had and like start playing guiding, but it was like guide as much as possible, just
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah, because
was
it
really
would get you
exciting
in
about
there.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You'd get
then,
your name in, you'd start to get to know people.
absolutely,
Yeah.
it was completely like a planned, like just sort of social engineering. Like, how do I just
Sure.
start making a name for myself and then work
Sure.
my way in? So
Yeah.
for you, like then EverQuest, it comes on the radar, I guess, during this period.
Right. So I'm doing, 2 separate careers, completely out of gaming, still trying to figure out how do I get into gaming, still applying to places all over the place. I remember
Mm.
getting an interview from Nintendo, and it was very weird. They didn't want me to actually go work on gaming. They wanted me to go work on their business application system.
Oh no.
Yeah, and at the time, it's like Nintendo was, I don't know if they're still doing it, but at the time, Nintendo was all proprietary. They like their spreadsheets. They didn't have like any off-the-shelf spreadsheet program. They had their own spreadsheet program. They had
Oh,
their own OS. Yeah, they completely built all of that, and I was like, no, no.
No.
I applied because I wanted to get into gaming. I didn't want to work on spreadsheets software.
Right.
So
Yeah, I mean, I guess if it gets you in the
yeah,
door, but yeah, if you get stuck with that, that's not fun.
yeah. And then so my co-fish, my ex-classmate,
Mm.
sent me an email saying, "Hey, I remember you really want to get into gaming. We just got an opening on EverQuest. Are you still interested?" And I immediately was like, "Yes, yes."
Yeah.
I really quickly that night I just kind of threw together my resume. It's like
Hmm.
not prepared for this, and just threw it together and then sent it over.
Okay.
And I sent it over, and they said, "Yo, wow, yeah, this looks great. You want to do an interview?" And I said, "Yes."
Yeah.
So did the phone interview. It was pretty easy because been a software engineer for a few years, many years at the time, and it's like, yeah, cool, I can do this.
Right.
And then they brought me on site, and the programming test on site, paper programming test, still paper programming test today. Well, it's digitized now, but literally a pencil and a stack of papers. No computers, no keyboard, no references, and then they stuck me in an empty cube.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, this is a little weird. So I wrote code, and then it's like, oh wait, this is kind of easy. So then I finished the test early, and it was Terry Michaels, the lead programmer on EQ at the time.
Okay. Yeah.
It's
I know
like,
Terry.
okay, well, what do I do now? Because I went in, it's like, okay, I'm done. There's nothing I can add to this. So I went in and then I just left it on his keyboard in his office, and I went and found my friend Chris Hoover. Chuver? I don't know if you ever worked with him.
The name sounds familiar, but I can't place
Yeah,
him.
yeah. So I went and found him, and it's like, okay, what do I do now? And Terry went and found me. It's like, what's up? Did you have any problems? I was like, no, I was done with the
I'm
test.
just done. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm done with the test. And he was fully expecting for me to not actually finish the test because it's designed to not be finished in an hour.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, I got the full on-site, they took me out to lunch and did all that. And it's like, yeah, no, everything's good, and then nothing for months. I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I didn't do so well. And what was going on is they thought that they were interviewing like, an early level engineer, like an
Right.
associate programmer level 1, and they just didn't have a space for me. And so 3 months later, they call up. It's like, hey, are you still interested? And I was like, yes, absolutely. How do I get there? It's like, okay, well, here's the offer. Here's how much
Right.
we're willing to pay you. It's like, yes, okay.
And
And so then I told him, it's like, I still live in Colorado. I need I need time to move. So then,
yeah, I need bus money.
yeah, I need time to move. So then, 2 months later, I eventually, like after 5 months after that interview, I finally was able to start on the game. So yeah,
Yeah, it's funny that that happens sometimes, right? It's like
yeah,
in the whole time it's just kind of like, man, is this gonna happen? Is it not gonna happen?
yeah,
It's such a roller
yeah,
coaster,
yeah.
but it's rad. So you got in, and then once you're in, it sounds like you're there 12 years. How long?
Yeah, I've been here since 2008, so 12, a little over 12 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so once you got in, I mean, this 2008, I was in Austin by then, but
Mm,
I can kind of remember the company like in terms
yeah,
of everything that was going on.
yeah.
Sony was a bit bigger. Like it was sprawling. I forget how
Oh,
many of
yeah.
the like 7 studios were still active at that point, but I know it seemed like
Yeah.
there was stuff going on all over the place.
Yeah, Sony had a gigantic presence in San Diego when I first came out.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, our building alone had, or not our building, but our campus had 3 buildings or 4 buildings that were all still pretty full and
Yeah.
dedicated to just us. And then there was the gigantic Sony Electronics building up the
Mhm.
way, up the 15, and that was sprawling. I know we had a meeting there one time, and I remember going to it, and it's like, this is all Sony. This is
Yeah.
huge. It was massive.
Yeah, and
So
I still saw folks like we would come out for Comic-Con and we'd come out I think for E3s for I know there are some off years and stuff like that with
yeah,
E3s. And it was interesting to always just see the number of folks, but like for me even when I was in San Diego, it was already like a 5 or 600 person company at least because I
oh
remember
yeah,
we'd have
yeah,
to do like the annual sort of presentations of this is what's going
um,
on. You look out over the sea of faces. And
yeah,
the challenge I always had with those two is I get real uncomfortable if I feel like I'm bullshitting. Like I don't like to lie. Like it just my
yeah,
brain
yeah,
doesn't like it. And so
yeah.
um when you have to kind of do it sort of marketing fluff, right?
Uh
And it's
huh,
like
uh huh.
there'll be dozens of quests, right? And blah 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 for the next expansion, and
Sure.
like you're looking out at a bunch of people who are paid to do it. I'm like, you can't bullshit these people. And so
You're
like
right.
when you've got to
Yeah.
do that presentation, it's just like, oh my goodness, sorry guys, I'm about to blow smoke. So I guess my question then is, you're coming on to EQ, and I
Yeah.
had left EQ. Oh man, like maybe 3 or 4 years prior, and so I've been
Sure.
catching up with different folks, Ryan,
Sure.
others, and
Sure.
Keel, and just kind of seeing like what was the vibe like. here's what I noticed before I left EQ, and I'm curious what you sort of saw when you landed there, which was
Okay.
we were a fairly like we were the team that like we always felt, and this may be inappropriate. I don't know. It may not even be true. Um, we were paying the bills. EverQuest was like
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
the game. And
Yeah.
yet it was like if any game needed a resource, it was just like yank. And if it was like, oh, who's going to get a marketing
Yeah.
budget? Not EQ. Like, and it was just kind of like
Yeah.
very sort of narrow. And
Yeah.
and so when you got there, that was even years later. So was
Yeah.
it like a scrappy team at that point? Just kind of,
It's definitely, I mean, if you compare it to today, it was definitely much larger than today. I would
mm,
definitely say that today we're like really, really scrappy. But back then it already felt a little scrappy. But yeah, it was definitely EQ's bringing in all this money. EQ2, when I got there that year, they had finally gotten into the black. So they
mm,
finally recouped all of their development costs and their continual costs, and they were had finally gotten into. It's like, hey, all this pre-development costs before we launched is now covered with all of our profits from every year after that. So in
right.
2008, that happened,
Wow.
and I remember going there, and I was like, hey, it. I had no concept of any of our financials, right? That was
Hmm.
not a thing that I was a part of back then. And I remember going, it's like, well, how come EQ2 gets all the neat stuff? How come EQ2 gets all the nice things? I mean, even
I've
when
been
we
there.
brought in, yeah, even when we brought in food, you look at like the EQ2 stuff, it's like, that's really nice. And then you look at us, it's like, you got me a $5 sandwich. Thanks.
It's always fun to go to your producer with that one. It's like, this is on you, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then as I was there, I would say around that time they were starting to really pull people for free realms. That
Mm.
it was either that year or the year after. It was definitely in that era where they were pulling people from free realms. It's like, okay, so are we going to get people back? Are we
Right.
going to? And it's like, no, no, no. Do more with less.
Yeah.
I was like, what? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is so weird.
Yeah, that
So,
was the feeling
yeah,
we always had as well, right? Like, and it is so. There's part of it. I look back and I go, I could have handled it in a much more mature fashion, or there's just things I didn't fully understand, or like
yeah,
it wasn't my place to understand the company strategy or whatever. But then on the flip side, now looking back over like, and this isn't like humble brag or whatever. It's just math. I've done this like I've been in online games for 20 years. I look
mm,
back and now I kind of see how like different things works or whatever. And so when I do have that hindsight, I do have the ability to kind of judge decisions. And
yeah,
so and I
yeah,
feel like it's fine to do it. It's it's interesting to see. First of all, like EverQuest is still here. Like
yeah,
I'm having so much fun playing right now, right? Like it's the game that I'm like, okay, 10 years ago when I was working on other stuff, at that point I realized, the first 2 years, maybe it's like, does this game last for 5 more years or 2 more years or how long
sure,
does it
sure,
last, right? It's a fair
sure,
sort of question.
yeah,
But by year like 10, when I'm looking at back on 10 years of EQ, I'm like, this thing could last forever if the right
yeah,
investment was made in it. And
mm-hmm,
so that's one of the things. Like I was looking at notes in preparation for us to talk, and I was like, as I was doing that, I've been looking at like RuneScape, and
sure,
RuneScape's had its best year. I could have sworn it's had its best
yes,
year this year in 20 years, right? They
yeah,
pulled in like RuneScape has made something like I was looking at
like
the
half a
math and
billion or something.
in total, but just in one year they made last year I
Oh
think they
yeah,
made $143 million with
woo,
60 million in profit, right? And
yeah,
so
yeah,
when I look at like MMOs, and
yeah,
this is the advice I've had for companies
yeah,
ever since EQ, is like invest in your flagship. This idea
yep,
that you're going to do it again,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
maybe you can, but honestly, if you don't have your shit together on your flagship, what makes you think you could do it again? So,
right,
anyways, that was a bit of a tangent. I will say, like a quick warning: if I ask you any question, you're like, I don't know if I can answer that. First of all, there's not many layers of management above you, right? I mean, it's basically
Yeah,
you and then
there.
G.
Yeah,
Or
basically.
yeah. So, but
G, the
if
board,
yeah, and I know, and the reality is there are boards, there are things. I know that you
Yeah,
can't just say everything. So if I ask
yeah.
anything that's like off limits, just time out like visibly, and chat won't see
Okay,
it. They won't know.
okay,
And then we'll just
okay,
skip that. Okay.
okay.
Um, so yeah, basically, so you've come into that situation where it's like very lean and still sort of
Yeah,
getting pulled. We're at
yeah.
sort of the free roams era, and now I'm assuming that it's kind of been that way probably ever since. Was there ever a period where it was like, hey, we're gonna re-snap the team, or
Um, I mean, it's definitely been a pivot very recently.
mm,
That we're focusing on reinvesting back into EQ1. We're focusing on reinvesting back into EQ2, and very recently, we've been seriously taking a look. Previously, it's like yes, we want to reinvest, but from a leadership team, they're definitely really, really hot into what RuneScape Old School has done.
right?
They're really seeing it's like, well, okay, yeah, you have all these games, all these MMOs that came after us, and all these, companies that have still managed to stay really, they're doing very well.
Exactly.
And so certainly from the management level, they told me it's like, hey, we recognize that for the longest time, EQ would make profits, make money,
Hmm.
hand over fist money, and it would get funneled into all these projects,
Right.
right? It would get funneled into, yeah. I can't even list all the projects that the
Oh, I'm
money has
sure.
gotten funneled into over the years. Um, and so they're really recognizing that now. It's like, well, okay, so how do we reinvest back into the games? How
Hmm.
can we make these games last, forever?
Right.
And so that's been a real pivot recently. And actually, before that, it's like, okay, so how do we make the next EQ?
Yeah.
um, and it was well, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. And I think in doing that, we had a lot of projects, a lot of secret projects going on at the time,
Hmm.
and it was just too many things competing for the same pile of money,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so, yeah, we actually, so that's how Landmark happened. That's how EverQuest Next happened.
Hmm.
Um, and then, we had to unfortunately shut that down because, again, we had way too many things going on.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
mean, looking at from as an outsider, well, as an outsider
yeah,
with a history of inside knowledge, when I saw those projects being pitched,
yeah, yeah,
I was like, man, the level of ambition there. Like,
yeah,
I'm a relatively conservative like designer, producer type, right? So when I look at that, I'm
yeah,
like, oof, how's that gonna happen? So those
yeah,
weren't shockers to me, to be honest,
yeah,
right?
yeah. They were very ambitious. I
And
wanted
so
them.
sure, I mean,
Yeah, I
they
wanted
seem
them, but
cool.
I also didn't see how it could happen.
Right. And
So
that's so and you're saying that as someone that was there, you're witnessing it. I always felt like while I was in the company, I'd witness some things. I'm just like, oh man, really like that's either going to be a challenge or that's not going to work, and then what? That kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Now you've progressed to the point of, I mean, you know, you're studio head. You're the
yes,
person, and help me understand too. So it's basically Daybreak became three individual companies, or
yes.
and
So Daybreak is still the parent company, right?
mm-hmm.
But
Well, yeah,
we
sorry,
are,
the umbrellas. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we, Darkpaw, Rogue Planet, and Dimensional Inc. We are separate studios.
Mm-hmm.
We're like sub studios,
Right.
kind of like I can't remember the name of the studio, but there's. I was just talking about them the other day. By the way, I'm horrible with names,
Oh,
so
me
if
too.
I mess up somebody's name or if I go, oh wait, if I mention the wrong name,
It's
you know,
completely fine. And don't feel bad. If you get my name wrong, I'm bound to get your name wrong at least twice. So now that pressure is off me to like, and I'm always panicked that I'm going to, yeah, we'll dub it in later. Good point. So we'll fix it in post. Honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's an umbrella
yeah.
company, and then you've got your three sort of studios that I'm assuming are just like very separate P&L, very like, okay, or is it all going back to the mothership and still being sort of, can I even ask that? That's a weird question. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, sure. That's a fair question. So certainly we are separate legal entities, right? But we've spent so many years, like more than 20 years, focusing on how do we become more efficient? How do we unify systems? How do we unify support teams? So then that way, we're more efficient, right?
Right.
So in that way, we don't have people just kind of going, I don't have any work to do because we're not touching any of this stuff.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So we're pulling apart bit by bit. It's definitely a slow process because it's like I don't need my own separate finance department, right?
Correct. There's always that benefit of certain things being centralized, like when you're looking at your various capabilities. And so, but it is interesting because then you get into the, this is one of those conversations that happens at so many companies as they grow. But it's interesting to see this as you kind of reform, like what you pick to sort of go within your kind of whatever your construct is versus be centralized. And so like, I would say like, but community management, customer service, and things like that, they seem so specific to a game.
Right. So community management, Dreamweaver is ours. Dreamweaver is Darkpaw. Occasionally he'll be tapped to put in, submit and post to all the places, all the social webs, like corporate messaging. But Dreamweaver is all EQ1 and EQ2. He's ours.
Cool. He's
all Darkpaw. And then CS, all of our CS people are all very heavily trained in our games. Like, in fact, typically we don't have a shared resource between EQ1 and EQ2. It's usually, if you are a frontline GM person, you know your game. You typically don't. I mean, occasionally, if we're having like really high ticket queues, we'll ask some people to come in and help out. But if you're talking about in-game CS, they have very specialized knowledge about even their even between EQ1 and EQ2.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a few people that are shared, like management. Yeah, makes sense. But for the most part, it's you are this. So
yeah, no, and that makes sense. And no, I appreciate you answering that. I mean, hopefully that helps some people sort of visualize what's going on. And this kind of taps into if you don't mind, like transitioning to some of what I did was I wrote down some of the common questions I've seen over the last couple of months on that front.
Yeah, no problem.
And so one of them kind of gets into that, like, when we're looking at the TLPs, especially like Eridune and I'll be honest, I didn't go find like a specific statement on this front, but there's a lot of questions about GM support. And then what does that look like these days? And sort of, there's some stuff where I'm like, as I hear it, I kind of understand I used to be in CS, right? I was a GM, so I know the degree to which I can sort of enforce a play nice policy or whatever. But kind of help us understand with like Eridune specifically, I guess, what's going on there.
So we still have people that we have hired specifically for Eridune and Rizlona, right? Okay. They're still there answering tickets. But again, there's only so much that we can answer every day because there's definitely a lot more people playing than CS, and there's a lot more people playing than all the, there's a lot more tickets than all of our CS can effectively, close out all the queues. And then plus, so we have dedicated GMs for Eridune and Rizlona. And then actually the current GMs have also been, the GMs that we had before now have also been coming in to help out on those queues. And so, Yeah. Um,
And
and
can I
certainly, yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, can I ask, like, this is my first TLP, so like,
Yep.
folks in chat have been sort of updating me on the history because they've been for multiple
Yep.
TLPs in the past.
Hmm.
Was this TLP like series like Eridu and Arizona? Was it bigger than normal? Is it like a
Hmm.
is there more of a sort of demand lately than there has been in the past, or?
I would definitely say that it definitely appears bigger than normal. It's kind of hard to
Yeah.
pull out because we don't really have great metrics around around who's playing what. I mean,
Hmm.
we can see like, total members, we can see total unique players, we can
Right.
see total population, and those numbers, yes, those
Yeah.
numbers
Okay.
are higher this time around than the last time we did just the what we call the standard progression rule set.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And for me, I was less thinking about like sort of the details of like the specific player segments that are participating, more of just sort of the overall numbers, right? Because one of the things
yeah,
that, again, has been a topic, and I think we even talked sort of beforehand, it's like looking at like Eridoon,
hmm,
the exchange of like server stability versus queues.
yeah,
And so there have been a couple of questions there with regards to like one, I can, based on my experience, I can understand the trade-offs and I can sort of
yeah,
picture some of what's involved there, especially if there's
hmm,
a demand.
hmm,
But that said, are there other factors beyond? I read your letter that you sent out at the time, and it was great. The the fact that people are working from home, etc. But is there also a bit, and it's cool if the answer is no, but is there a bit of like on a 20-year-old live game? Are there some challenges with like, hey, to really be able to do certain things with absolute certainty or stability, we've got to do a lot of refactoring. We've got to do a lot of
yeah,
sort of going back and cleaning up. Is that sort
yeah.
of what? Yeah, yeah, basically. Is
Yeah,
that
absolutely. And I can actually go in a little bit more into detail into this,
okay?
because I'm the I'm
Yeah,
the
as
tech
let's
lead
say
right now.
the degree to which you can and you feel comfortable, I do
Yeah,
think it would be
certainly,
cool.
certainly. So when we launched, we had actually done server merges the month before, or no, the week before. I don't remember. Everything's kind of a blur. I have also
Mm-hmm.
no concept of time.
Mm-hmm.
So we had done server merges before
Yeah.
the launch, and the reason why we did that was because we needed to shut down those servers, and it wasn't a hardware thing. If it was simply hardware, yeah, we could easily buy new hardware and just throw it into the
Yeah.
data center, hook it up, we're good. It wasn't a hardware thing. If it was a hardware thing, I would have been so happy. It's like, okay, yep, just toss servers at it, just toss new you know toss new blades in the rack and we're good.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. It wasn't that.
Yeah.
So the problem was we have what I like to call our gigantic single point of failure.
Mm-hmm.
um, that is our data structure, right? We have so much massive data just flowing through to our databases, which again, it's not one database, it's many databases.
Right.
We have the single point of failure that is kind of the coordinator that goes through all of those databases. And so we couldn't add another world. Uh, oh, great. Windows is asking me to restart.
Oh. Oh.
Updates. Anyways, so we couldn't add more worlds, and we definitely couldn't support what we expected the population to be on Eridoon and Rizlona without actually shutting down some more worlds.
Right.
Um, and because it was all going through this massive this database caching system.
Mm-hmm.
And we had actually fixed the issues with that very recently. I would say within the past month or two, right? But at launch, we said, okay, well, we need to shut down these additional servers before we can even launch these servers. And that was the
Right.
biggest thing holding up why we didn't launch the servers earlier.
Okay.
We were waiting for server merges to, all the work to actually be completed and to, tested, so then that way we can merge servers, so then that way we can start new servers. And but certainly we started the new servers, and there was an issue in this software where if we had too much traffic going through all at once, it would just crash one of the nodes, one of the big nodes.
Right.
And the way the system's designed is if one of the nodes out of the massive database system goes down, everything goes down.
Yeah.
All live worlds go down. Everything. And yeah. And so we were working. It's like, well, what's causing this? Is it, what's causing this? And eventually we got in touch with our core tech system, our core tech team, because the core tech team is actually the ones who write that specific software for us.
Okay.
And so we got in touch with them. It was like, what's going on here? We've been seeing crashes like this. We don't know what's going on. Are we using the system wrong? Is there a bug in the system? What is going on? And we could never accurately reproduce it. And it's like, here. We kept on giving them information. And it's like, oh, there's an issue here where this database node, the caching system, is not thread safe. Right here in this one tiny little obscure region of the code, when it hit it, it's like, nah, I'm just going to corrupt memory.
Yeah. I'm agreeing, just because, again, like, I've been working on only basically MMOs for 20 years. And as you're describing this, I'm like, I could see that, right? Like, especially when you're dealing with older games. So, yeah.
Yeah. So then once we fixed that, it's like, okay, cool, that fixed that. But then we were also seeing like really bad performance issues. We were like, okay, why did the world go down to 1 frame a second? Why is this? Why did this world spend 40 seconds in a frame? Because, a very healthy world is 60 to 80 frames per second. And we would see, it's like, this world is spending, wait, did that world spend 120 seconds in 1 frame? What's going on here? And so we were also chasing down those issues. So it was just a whole collection of issues. It's like, okay, well, we're hitting performance issues here, and we're hitting performance issues here, and we're hitting crash issues here, stability issues there. And so the engineering team, I mean, for months, it was like, okay, well, how do we fix it? And unfortunately, I couldn't actually devote the time, because that was also the time I became head.
Right. Yeah.
I couldn't. So it was I was all relying on my engineering team, and they definitely found some things that I don't think I would have found with my limited attention span at the time.
Yeah. No, at that point, I mean,
kudos to those guys.
You're in a situation where, one, you have to have that delegation, and it's totally appropriate. It's just, it's unfortunate, especially with online games, where a lot of times when things are most exciting, or you're most amped because, like, hey, this is going really well, or this, like, when things are going well, it usually means that there are more people. When there are more people, then if anything goes wrong, and there's a higher probability of it going wrong because there are more people, then it's just, at least speaking from personal experience, it's so disappointing. And people are like, they're understandably upset. But like, it sucks, because from at least speaking for myself, the reason why I'm there is I'm passionate about what I'm doing, and I'm passionate about the player base and the product. I'm excited because I think there's a great opportunity to do some cool shit. Then something happens, and it's just like, oh man,
it's so heartbreaking. I mean, every single crash that happened, it's like, I get emails, I get a flood of emails, I get notifications, like, oh, it's down again. And I mean, I mean, we had stability. We had very light stability issues before launch, right? I mean, there were still world crashes, and that, trying to find those world crashes actually kicked off a complete gutting of our crash reporting system.
Right.
Uh, and that actually started last year, where I was like, hey, there's these stability issues. I don't know how to fix this. Our crash reporting system isn't telling me anything.
Yeah.
It didn't even know that the world went down.
It's so common, right? Because what winds up happening is it's like when shit starts breaking, then it's like, well, but we
Yeah,
do we know why, or do we know what is breaking? Do we
yeah,
have any good reports? Oh, we don't have good reports. Well, why not? Because we've got to go back and either update or fix, or hell, in some
yeah,
cases, in my experience, we just didn't have any crash reporting, and it's like,
yeah,
okay, so now we have to go do that. The
yep,
resources that we apply to getting the crash reporting in place is also then they're the ones that are supposed to be working on this other stuff, and it's
right,
often critical.
right,
And so it's like,
yeah,
okay, there's a prioritization now. So in order to fix the thing that's breaking, I have to like get crash reporting. And in order to get crash reporting, I have to pull this person that's supposed to be doing this other stuff that may or may not be
mm-hmm,
critical. It's
yeah,
it's such a juggling nightmare. So
absolutely,
I definitely empathize on that one. I know there was a question earlier. It's like uh, I, I'm not an actual interviewer. I'm just a random dude with a Twitch account, and so like, and it's like I'm not here to. I don't even know how to ask a PR appropriate question. I'm just saying the random shit that comes to mind and asking you questions
sure,
because it's awesome to
sure,
get to meet you, and it's EverQuest and I love EverQuest and stuff. So it's
yeah.
like
But
the
in
concern that
case
I'm
I
like
forget to do it,
softballing. Yeah,
in case I forget to
do it.
do it, absolutely thank you for doing this. I know that when your stream first came up, it's like, who is this guy? Because we were not sure if you were actually an ex developer,
No, I'm
because it's
lying.
like this person is going on Twitch saying that he used to be an ex developer. It's like, I've never seen this channel before. Who is this
Yeah,
guy?
like
And
just
so we were
random.
looking. It's like, Sean Lord. Does anybody remember Sean? It's like, and then
No,
I
no one
believe it was,
does.
yeah, and I believe it was Jonathan. It's like, oh yeah, he totally is an ex developer. That's totally Sean. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah, no,
So
it was fun that first night when folks came in. I think I was I was sitting there waiting for well, to be honest, I was singing in the queue, right? Like it was like Eridoon day one, and so
yeah,
yeah, it was cool. It's weird because yeah, no Bobby, not Stolen Valor. I swear, I really did work on EverQuest at one point. Not very well, but I did. Yeah. So all right. So back to these tough questions that I've got.
sure, sure.
So what's can you give us an idea of like the split and focus between like TLP and non-TLP right now? Like,
The split and the focus.
is there even?
Yeah, I mean, so TLPs are definitely an evolution.
Hmm.
Our very first TLPs in 2011. Uh, Somebody on the internet can look it up.
Chat
uh,
will know
the,
for sure.
yeah, our very first TLPs were pretty rough. And it was the very first time we had done TLPs. I'm trying to remember if we put in voting in those TLPs. I don't remember. I remember adding the voting system, but I don't remember if those servers had voting or not.
Okay.
Um, and those were extremely rough. And each TLP we get better. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, now people are running into like some really gating issues here because something new went in and kind of stomped on all the scripts, and now it's all broken. It's like,
Right.
oh, whoops. So every TLP, and as each server gets closer and closer to live, it's like, oh, okay, now this is gating. We should fix this. Now this
Right.
is gating. Oh yeah, we need to fix this. So yeah, it's hard to give a blend because if gating issues come up, we need to fix them.
But does
um,
it is it turning into something where sort of based on the popularity, looking at, I guess a simpler way to phrase it is based on what you've seen,
mhm.
is there more of a conscious way of like going, hey, is this kind of our leagues? Is this our seasons? How do we as a
Mhm.
business sort of work this better into like our business model and
Sure. So yeah, I mean, it is definitely part of our business model, right?
Hmm.
Because we get it. It's a big excitement point.
Hmm.
Other than the expansion, we don't really have a lot of big points throughout the year. Well, anniversary, expansion, and TLP launch. Those are kind of our big points where we're really like, throwing all the eggs in the basket and going, here you go.
Right, yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's hard to give a blend because we are such a small team and we can't dedicate like an entire team of people to go work on TLPs. We can't
Right.
even dedicate an entire people to go work on expansions. Towards the time that I started, so I believe during your era there was like an expansion team and there was like a live team, right?
In
Ish.
ish. So what
Yeah.
wound up yeah, it was basically there was there were people that by nature of what they did were sort of and I might be remembering this wrong. It was easier for them to stay focused on certain live issues.
Sure.
Um, the the rate at which we were putting out expansions during that period, even if there was sort of a lull where the live team could kind of operate, they
Hmm.
were often then pulled back in, like systemically back into making sure that we got stuff done. But
Sure.
I would say that part of it was also like during that era, we were having to redo a lot of stuff in order to build the headroom and the sustainability of the game because it just was
Right.
never meant to last. Each
Right.
expansion was like it's not going to last past the next expansion during that era, right? And so the some of the live team stuff was like going back and like fixing a ton of itemization or hey, we've
Hmm.
got this massive database change. So,
Hmm.
like because we've run out of actual I think it was I forget when, but it was like we can't add another item to the database, right? Like we're just done.
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right, so we've got to fix that. And so there
Yeah.
was a lot of that type of stuff that was part of the life team, but for the most part, if I remember correctly, almost everybody ultimately worked on expansions at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, at some point, somebody will be working on the expansion
Mm.
this year and last year and next year, and
Hmm.
at some
Yeah, it
point,
makes sense.
everybody is involved with the expansion at one point. But I mean, yeah, I guess if you lump in live and TLP, yeah, no, that's what the majority of the people on the team work on. But it
Yeah.
also is very discipline specific, right? Like I'm never going to ask an artist to come and fix a spell bug, right?
Right, right, right.
I mean,
Yeah.
unless it's specifically a particle issue with that spell, I'm never going to ask an artist to fix a spell bug.
Yeah.
So it absolutely is very discipline specific. So the
Okay.
artists are absolutely they're focusing on this expansion and starting to get into previs for next expansion.
Mm-hmm.
And then our designers are starting to write the documents for next expansion, like
Right.
the year after. So
Yeah.
2021.
No,
So they're already starting to write those docs.
yeah, it makes sense. I mean, honestly, you've got to be able to front load like that because any gap you have on the current thing, like getting started on the next thing makes sense. Um, so I was trying to think. I mean, with the team size that you have, you've got two products now that are
Hmm.
live with EQ and
Yep.
EQ2.
Yep.
I don't know of anything. There's no other thing that I'm missing, right? It's like EQ and EQ2 is Darkpaw's
Yeah,
focus.
there's nothing left in the franchise.
Yeah,
It's live.
and then
Yeah.
is there? I'm going to ask this question. I don't expect you to answer it.
Sure.
You can say no comment. I get it. But you've got two live games that you're doing things like TLP for, and you're doing
Yep.
expansions,
Yep.
sharing some of those folks back and forth on some of that. It sounds like
A little bit.
a little bit like on the art side or whatever it sounds
Yeah.
like. Or
On
okay,
art and me.
yeah, okay,
I think that's it.
good,
Yeah, and not even all art. I think yeah, it's just character art.
yeah,
We do have separate environment artists for both teams. Like they do, you do this game, you do this game. They usually don't ever blend.
So I'm trying to think of maybe another way to ask this is the focus now on sort of that living world, looking at RuneScape, looking at its success, etc. Is the focus on really sort of following that model, or is there thought to like, all right, so if we could start over, if we were to do this again, it would allow us to basically mitigate these problems that we've now sort of learned about over 20 years. Is there any sort of any hint you can give us as to like, hey, a new game is not off the table, or hey, don't expect it anytime soon? Like, I'm not trying to get you to say yes, there's an EQ3, and when is Half-Life 3 launching, or anything like that. But I kind of am also asking both of those questions, if you know.
Yeah. So I actually thought about this for a very long time.
I'm sure you
It's
did.
like, yeah, about how I would answer this. And I guess what I can say is that we're always talking. We're always figuring out things. We're always planning. We're always, I mean, as much as we love EQ1 and EQ2, we can't change what these games are.
Right.
We
Yeah, I
can't
know.
drastically change what these games are. So we need to keep them running for as long as possible because they are a very, I would almost say, niche types of games, both
Absolutely.
separately. And to make a new product, absolutely, it needs to, incorporate new tastes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that I know that, you know, current market, when you're talking about all the people,
Mm-hmm.
current market, you can't spend 12 hours raiding. That's not a thing that people en masse can do.
I would say if you're content with the 12 hours you're spending in rating in one of the existing games, no.
Yeah,
But
then
I would
I
actually
want,
throw out
yeah,
there that there's probably people that would play a game where you spend 12 hours rating. That's a new game, but it would be a niche. We talk about this a lot on the
yeah,
stream. It's like
yeah,
it would have to be built as a super niche. Like your
right,
business model
right,
would have to acknowledge that it's not a
right,
massive game.
right, right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, we're always talking. We're always prototyping and, poking at things. Um, but yeah, no, there's definitely nothing that we're comfortable actually
Yeah.
sharing with anybody. I
That's
mean,
fine.
even
Well,
sharing outside of the team, right? Because it's like,
yeah.
oh, yeah, no. It's
Yeah.
like,
No,
that's a nice idea, but
I get it. I get it. And but you can't confirm Half-Life 3 either, right? That was the
right,
other one. No.
right,
I
right.
mean, you could confirm that one. Like, what are they gonna do? Cool. All right. So
Oh,
I did.
my team has a statement that's also very
Uh-oh.
good. Let's see. Remember how it went before when we made announcements before we had a game? Yeah, you remember that? Well, we're gonna make sure we have something worth talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
would. I would definitely say that would be nice to see gameplay before like making that
yeah,
kind of announcement. But I was just curious, mainly just from the logistical challenge part of it, because I could totally see, like, honestly, that's so many different like eggs to juggle at that point. So my thought has just been, hey, if there is continued support for EQ and EQ2, if you're reinvesting in that, then it would also make sense to me that the focus is there and not necessarily on something completely new. So,
yeah.
all right.
Right now, absolutely. EQ1 and EQ2.
I would say we just hit the one. Wow, this has been fun. This has been dense. Because it's an hour. It's only been an hour. Do you have more time? Can we go through some of the chat questions?
Yeah, yeah. I have about an hour left.
Awesome. I think that'd be great timing then. Uh, so I'm scrolling back up so that we don't miss anything. Um, So I think I've hit the top mods. Let me know if I'm wrong. Happy Feet asked, will DPG ever post an open poll in order to plan for the next TLPs?
An open poll. Um, we're still kind of hesitant to do like major polls for like,
Okay.
here's a very open thing, just give us all your ideas for the next TLP. We're hesitant against that because when we were polling people, we got tons of accusations that they're fixing the polls. They're lying. They're just picking the ones that they want. It's like, no, this is what was voted. And then they would also say, and voter fraud. And it's like, so we're kind of hesitant. And then, especially if it's a very, very close poll, we can see that a community is like really happy, but then that very, very close percentage of people are very, very unhappy about it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so yeah, we're still very hesitant. And
Okay.
that's the
Fair
reason
enough.
why we're kind of scared to do more polls.
Fair enough. Yeah. Voter fraud and EverQuest. My God. Okay. So next question. Editor Sevis asks, when is Player Studio for EQ coming back?
Unfortunately, I don't know if that's ever going to come back. It was a very interesting idea. We definitely had a lot of great creators. And I absolutely loved, seeing what they were putting out there and just being able to, include the community in making the game richer.
Mm-hmm.
But our workflow to actually get things out of Player Studio was costing more time in artists time than for actually having those artists just create more objects
I can totally picture it.
on their own.
It's similar. It's probably similar, but maybe even well, definitely more challenging than even using outsourcing. Right? It's just
Yeah,
sometimes it's just a hell of a lot easier. Well, most times it's a hell of a lot easier to have it in house. For an
yeah,
initiative like that, I can see why it's kind of cool, but I could also see why it'd be hard to sustain.
yeah.
So
We have a
fair enough.
very proprietary art format still, so just getting it to that format was a nightmare.
Yeah. No, I can imagine. Another
Yeah.
question. Axel Shepard, I'd like to know what they draw inspiration from for a 2-decade-old game. Oh, that's a interesting question because I thought about it too. It's like
Yeah.
it's challenging to keep like coming up with new twists and new takes on stuff, more stories. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a better question for Absol,
Okay.
Alan. Um,
No, I want to get Appsor on here. We
yeah, you
were
should ask him.
I was kindly picking on him a little bit during Tom's time on here. So Absor, if you saw it, I've always thought you were the awesomest dude ever. So I would love to have him on. Please mention it. If he's not watching it, please mention it to him. I would love to catch up with him offline. He doesn't even have to come on here.
Yeah,
Please.
I don't know if he'll actually even come on because, Absol, Alan's Alan. He doesn't
Yeah,
really like being on camera.
I know, but he's so awesome. Okay, so we'll follow up on that one. Dantron asks, every time a new TLP is announced, there's always a ton of varying opinions, ideas for what the rule set should be. But one common rule set request is for an FV TLP server, but it doesn't seem to get much reception. Is this because the technical requirements to create a FV TLP are too time-consuming or difficult, or that you think that it's not widely sought after? Or is it in rather just a vocal minority requesting one? I honestly,
Um,
the Furiona V, is that what the
yeah,
FVs are? And
yeah,
I
the
don't
free
know if,
trade rule set. Yeah, I know
okay,
exactly what this comment
okay.
is about or question is about. Uh, so we do see that there is a community that really they're really excited about FB, about free trade rule sets.
Hmm.
But our biggest issue with actually launching a TLP with that is there with free trade, there's a lot of CS support to actually support that. I mean, even right now on the current FV server, we get so many tickets just from that server every single day.
I noticed chat was saying that immediately as well, and so
yeah, and that's for the current server that doesn't have anywhere near the same level of population as our progression servers.
Yeah. Oh, there's a question in chat that's actually a good question for me.
Sure.
What kind of tickets do you get for there? Like, because I don't fully understand. Like,
for FE,
yeah,
certainly it's a lot of I got scammed. They took my real money and didn't give me this thing, and I was like, you shouldn't be using these third-party sites.
Yeah.
You need to complain to them. Or like they stole my credit card. It's like, yeah, don't use these sites. And so it's like we can't help you. I mean, we can help you. I mean, we can make sure that you have two-factor authentication turned on your account, so that way they don't steal your account. But we can't really. I mean, we're not credit card companies. We're not that company that scammed you. So we get these tickets all the time, and it's like I wish I could just tell them. It's like, I'm very sorry, man. That sucks. I would hate to have any of this stolen because I'm very attached to my personal characters.
Yeah.
But there's just so much. There's a decent amount of scamming still going on that.
Yeah, and it's tough, like being in customer service for that as well. Like I remember those days, and it's just like when things like that come up. Just having to deal with it because you feel bad. It's like, I'd love to help you. There was a period, just quick old school story. There was a period, and I don't know if it's still like this. Maybe it is. So I don't want to talk too much yet, but there was a period where we had a policy where if you acknowledged that your account was shared in any way, we would just ban you on the spot. I don't know if you still do that. Is that still a thing?
I'd have to check with CS. I don't have the entire CS policy, manual in my head.
Let's pretend that you don't, so I don't feel bad about the rest of the story. And it's like, basically what would happen was like somebody would just be like, little Timmy would come in. Little Timmy's like, all my items are gone. And I'm like, did you share your account? No, I wouldn't even say that. At that time, as a GM, I'd have to go, little Timmy, are you sure your items are gone? That yes, they're all gone. I'm like, little Timmy, often the source of this is account sharing. And I have to warn you that if you told me you shared your account, or if I investigate and find the account sharing, I have to ban you. It's like, I want my items. They're gone. I'm like, dude, come on. Listen to me.
Yeah.
Just take your lack of items and go, dude. Like, don't make me do this to you. Yeah, and then I have to ban little Timmy. Yeah, so hopefully that's not the policy anymore, CS. If you're listening, that really sucked. Somebody said they kind of remember that, so maybe that's not the case. Roman Clifford has a question. Will they ever post the server numbers on live/TLP servers? I understand people gravitate more towards the higher pop servers, and I'm sure the answer is to keep people from clogging down one server.
So I wasn't here when we stopped showing pop numbers, right? So I wasn't involved with that initial decision. But going into the future, I'm still again hesitant because yes, we try to be transparent, but there are some things where it's like, no, this is too much information. So
there's always a concern of the nightclub effect, right? Like if you see that it's empty, it's just going to get emptier.
Right. Yeah. Right. And then if you see that this is popular, now we're going to get queues and then people can't get in. And that's a horrible experience as well.
Yeah.
So.
Fair enough. Let me see. And keep in mind, mods, I'm just reading the question as I go through it. So for the first time, so if anything in here is sketchy or whatever, then I will apologize. And that's not to him, for Lizard, who just asked the next question that I assumed your question's going to be sketchy. I'm sure it's fine. Will we ever see new or innovative abilities slash spells added to the classes, or are we strictly stuck on the same ability spell lines that we have seen for the past 5 years or so? I know they try every so often, but end up getting scrapped during expansion beta. Have they ever revisited those scrapped ideas to see if they can rework them into something functional? Sorry for the lengthy question. So, new
I
innovative
mean,
spells and abilities moving forward.
I mean, yes.
Cool.
Will we ever? Yes.
But
um, will you think that it is innovative enough? Maybe, maybe. I don't know.
fair enough.
It's all a relative thing, right?
Yeah. Um, Acquittal asked, "What is your favorite zone and music from a zone?" That was a early question, but it's still a good one. So this one's to you, Jen.
Favorite zone. Favorite zone. Well, I can definitely tell you that I'm a big fan of Thunder Rock Springs for the music.
Okay.
Like just going through all the tracks in the entire game. I went through that, I guess, a few years ago, where I was just going through and just like, oh, what's this? What's this? What's this? Um, Thunder Rock Springs.
I
That
wrote it down.
soundtrack definitely is. It's different. It's epic, but it's also very light and just fun at the same time. Um, and then, favorite zone. I don't know if I have a favorite zone. I mean, I spend a ton of time in Kelethin because I keep on re-rolling lots of ults on the
Hmm.
TLPs. So a ton of time I spend in Kelethin. But I don't know if I have a favorite zone.
It's so
Yeah, I
hard.
can't think. Yeah, that's so hard because, I mean, how do I even evaluate that? Is it based off of like the open vistas, the number of vistas that I can just stand and go, wow, this looks amazing? Or do I go, this is a really solid dungeon crawl? Or do I go, this is really well pathed and, the NPC
Yeah.
mob groups are really well
The
placed here?
the pathing actually works in this zone. I like it. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Or the
Um,
pathing is kind of broken in this zone, but it allows me to land all my spells before they get to me because they're
yeah.
running around this box of air.
So, what is your favorite zone to exploit in? Now that you've mentioned it.
No,
No. Okay.
no.
Um, so new question. Let's see. Maestro Bob asked, and this was asked earlier, and for me, I didn't have an answer for this one, but I'm curious. Maybe there's a different way to phrase it. Was there a reason why Jay Barbeau wasn't brought back in to do music for the expansions? And I guess
Uh,
Switch wasn't to hasn't been yet or whatever. Do you know?
yeah, I mean, that was definitely a long way before me.
Yeah.
So I don't really have an answer on that. I don't know. I don't even know who to actually ask about
Yeah.
that.
That's fair. I didn't either. I remember the transition in terms of working with Rob, I guess, and stuff like that, but I couldn't say. So I passed on it. Axel Shepard asked, did they ever say why they got rid of Legends of Norath?
Uh, I'm pretty sure that there was a press release as to why.
We'll have to Google that one. We'll have to get back on that
I
one.
mean,
I'll
I
actually
was involved with that. I mean, we just couldn't. It was to keep that game running was more expensive than the revenue coming in.
yeah,
At the end of the day, that was it. And the team had gotten small enough that I was the last person on the team
oh
um,
wow. Okay.
while I was on EQ.
Fair enough.
So, yeah.
And
So it
it
was
happens.
definitely, yeah. I mean, it was a very interesting game, but from what I understood, it was too complex for most people.
Fair enough.
So,
I honestly I was aware of it. I hadn't messed with it myself.
yeah.
So new question. I think this is from you, Nick. Are there any plans to add windowed full screen or other new enhancements to the EQ client?
Windowed full screen. Uh, yes. I'm pretty sure it's in our backlog somewhere. Um,
Fair enough.
but yeah, again, priorities.
Exactly. No, I get it. Um, as long as you acknowledge it's in a backlog, I think that gives us a little bit of something to wrap our heads around. Um, and on a separate stream, folks, we can get together and I can just ramble and ramble and ramble about backlog prioritization and what fun it is. Lizard asked, have you ever found that wide-eyed, amazed, scared, intrigued feeling sense of the unknown that lurks around every corner that is EQ in 1999 to 2001 and any other game since then? Most new games seem to have lost that. Everything's really blasted all over the interweb before games even launch. So I guess that that one went into chat. Some folks were answering it, but you as a player, have you?
Me as a player, I've been seeing a lot of that in the just auto-generated games where
Oh,
I won't know what's there because it hasn't been generated yet.
right.
And then as soon as I get near it, then it gets generated. Certainly, I've seen it in those types of games. So
Cool. That's
yeah.
it. That's an interesting point. Yeah. I think we may have covered. No, let me just read it out anyways. I've got a question here. Don't know who to attribute it to. EverQuest progression servers have been a resounding success and have greatly revitalized interest in the game.
Mhm.
Do you plan to do more for classic EverQuest enthusiasts, or are you happy with the way progression servers are currently filling that role?
Um, that's a tough question. I mean, absolutely, we love the TLPs. It really has brought a lot of people back to the game that that probably wouldn't have ever come back. Uh, and I was actually talking about this with Prathan, and he was saying it's like, yeah, no, current EverQuest is a very different EverQuest.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, in around Gates, it kind of started going into a very different style of play.
Mm-hmm.
Gates and on, and then it's debatable about where exactly that cutoff is, but early EverQuest is a very specific style of play, and then modern day EverQuest is also a very specific style of play, and so it's like, okay, well, TLPs can serve the early style of play, and then new servers are serving the current style of play,
Right.
um, and trying to do more for classic. Sure, I mean we always talk about it. We always go. It's like, well, what can we do better? What can we do that won't make everyone freak out?
Right.
um, because we changed something that someone was really in love with, and it's like, oh, whoops.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's also, yeah,
It's
it's
challenging.
it's it's a hard question to answer because, again, we don't have a gigantic team, and we're also trying to figure out how can we bring back a classic without messing with people.
Right.
And also, yeah, we don't have something that we can actually show people and go, yay, everybody join the alpha, join the beta. So
Right.
yeah, and it's a tough question.
Fair enough. Well, I appreciate you answering to the best of your ability on that one. I mean, yeah, it's a tough one. Synexia had. Sorry, let me start over. Synexia, Jen, have you always lived in Southern California?
I have not. I was actually born in Texas.
Texas.
I was
What
I
part?
was born in Texas in the Panhandle area, near Cactus, near Cactus, Texas.
Not a
Not cacti.
cactus.
No, yeah, Cactus. Near Cactus, and I was born there. I moved away from Texas and moved to Colorado when I was 4, and then
Okay.
so I was basically raised in Colorado, right? and
Fair enough.
then went to school there, went to college there, went to university, got my degree, had some jobs there, had a whole separate career, and then I moved to Southern California specifically for EverQuest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Me too. I had never been that far west. Like honestly, it was like I went from Alabama to California in a U-Haul, and
Yeah.
it was like I don't think I'd been past Louisiana before. But it was just like, oh,
Wow.
this is sketchy.
Yeah.
California was something to see for the first time.
Yeah.
Um, cool. Well, thank you for answering that. Cactus. I lived in Austin for 9 years. I don't know that I've ever heard of Cactus.
Yeah. Really tiny place in the Panhandle. Basically a meat packing factory.
Oh, so it's very Texas Chainsaw style.
Well, I
Uh,
don't remember because I was a kid. I do remember eating a lot of steak and potatoes
oh, right
because my
on.
father worked at the meatpacking factory, and every month I think that they would give them a full case of meat. It's like, hey, thanks for working here. Here's a case of meat.
That is amazing. That sounds wonderful. um, let's see. Uh, Anonymous asks, do you have any plans to improve the anti-hack or better punish cheaters who avoid or circumvent punishment in EQ?
Yeah, I mean, we're always working on it. It's always something where it's like, oh, okay, well now we need to fix this issue. Now we need to fix that issue. The problem there is basically as soon as we close up one hole, people move to another one, and it's like, now there's a hole here too. So it's like, plug this hole.
20 years of that. It's incredible.
Yeah, yeah. So
Let's see. Another anonymous. What is more popular currently, EverQuest Live, EQ, TLP? Can you talk about which one generates more revenue? Well, we talked a little bit about that, but I did actually avoid any specific revenue generation questions so far on my list.
yeah, I
Um,
mean, Holly let the cat out of the bag there.
and so
um,
since the cat's already out of the
yeah.
bag, what was it again?
TLPs. What she said was that TLPs generate about half the revenue.
Hmm.
Um, but it also depends on fudging numbers. It's like, well, who actually bought this item? Was a person buying this item, and are they a TLP player? Are they a live player? Are they a blend? And that's
Hmm.
where the numbers get real fuzzy
Yeah, it's interesting.
when people play both.
Yeah, I for sure like it's interesting to watch my LTV since I've come back. Because there's just one of those things where it's like, you know, the bags alone, just buying the bags, let alone the experience potions and things like, yeah. So on multiple characters. So good move on those things. I've definitely reinvested. Let's see. New question. Is there any chance we could see a player versus player TLP? The EQ PvP community has been trying to find a home.
So we absolutely watched the numbers on that time when the PvP community was trying to rally people onto Zach to at least
Hmm.
say, hey, there are at least these many people willing to log on to Zach and show and just tally up the numbers and just be bodies on the server. And it wasn't big enough to actually warrant us, launching a new server.
Yeah.
So if the TLP community is all big on doing that and going to try that again, yes, pick a date, pick a time, get your numbers up.
Okay.
Because if we can see that there's enough people willing to all get on the server on a free server, no less, on a free server at a certain time and actually get those numbers up, then yeah, that's something that we'll consider. But until we can actually see numbers that it's like, whoa, we can't justify time on this.
Fair enough. That's
So
fair.
there we go.
Chat. I haven't been watching chat for the most part. I'll be honest with you. I'm sorry, guys. I've been reading your questions and said, I hope you're being nice. Be nice to the PvP players. Even if there are very few of them, they are still people. We like them. They're our friends. Be nice, guys. We have a nice chat here, right? But yeah, so get the numbers up, guys. All right, so is this wow, okay. Is it Twitch? No. Prime Biggs? Prime Biggs 03. I'm sorry if I'm messing your name up. It's the moderator's fault. Given the recent, the last few months issues and stability system, amount of time investigating, spent figuring out the older technology, are the plans to reinvest in upgrading, renewing the code and systems to be more in line with modern solutions? Is that even possible given its current state? I feel like we hit this a little bit. Is there any more to add with regards to that question?
I mean, it's a continuous project. We
Yeah, I
have
was about
been.
to say. Yeah.
We have been. Absolutely. It's piece by piece, system by system.
Fair enough. And yeah, and not picking on a question at all. It's just as I was reading it, I was kind of thinking to myself as well. It's like it's a never ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like there's been like identified a thing. You know, based on what you said, it's like it's not like, hey, we could have just, you know, we didn't want to go buy like 20 new blades or something. It's not a, hey, if we just sat down and refactored this one specific piece of code, we'd be there or whatever.
Yeah.
It's more of like a, as we go, we have to just kind of keep hammering at it. Or
Yep. Yep.
cool. Arizona Songweaver, do you guys use COTS like SolarWinds to monitor servers, or do you have some custom in-house reporting system?
Oh, we have a blend. I don't exactly know what they are because our operations team is the one that actually uses it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a blend. There's definitely some stuff that's off the shelf and some stuff that's very, very custom.
Okay. Fair enough. And at some point in the future stream, we can also talk about sort of that separation often between the teams and ops and different things. But another question from Anonymous. So many questions, Anonymous, but that's okay. Unless, Nick, you're anonymizing the person. Do you follow the community at all? Notable players, guilds, etc.?
Do I follow the what community?
The community. So do you have like certain players or guilds or notable like influencers that you tend to keep up with more than others, or I mean, other than this stream, which is critical?
Yeah, I mean, I personally, there's so much for me to look at every day. I know my team certainly has people that they're looking at all the time. And I usually rely on my team to give me the nutshell on a lot of things.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely do have some of my favorites where it's like, oh, hey, I like this stream. I'm not going to tell them I'm here, because that's going to be a whole other, you know, then I'm taking away, you know, from their stream. It's like, no, I like their stream, and then turning it into my stream. It's like, Oh.
I know that feeling, especially now that I'm extremely famous. So like I'll watch Ko or somebody, but I keep it on the DL. I don't want to like interrupt his flow.
Yeah.
Summit. Yeah. So let's see. Lockers asked, with the new TLP, would it be technically possible to introduce the Berserker class from Classic? So I guess if I'm understanding this one, Lockers introduce the Berserker earlier?
I mean, from a technical standpoint, yes, but I'm not sure that things would be itemized or available for them to do.
Chat was just saying, just hopping on that one as well, it looks like. So yeah, okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
we can turn it on, but there's not going to be things for you.
it's a fair point. Arizona Songweaver, what are some of the challenges of updating a legacy game to run on current infrastructures?
I actually have a short story about this. So in 2012, when we got what I would say a significant jump in hardware, I would say like maybe a 10-year jump in age of hardware in 2012. We actually ran into some interesting issues where our clock cycles. So the technology was written in such a way where when the server comes up, it would spend this much time and it would say, okay, well, the CPU speed is this. And just that's how it would determine time in the game. And so so in 2012, when we jumped to our significantly better hardware, our hardware actually changes its clock speed depending on the time, how much load is on the machine, right? It'll actually give it more power and then increase the speed of the bus speed. And so we didn't have a set clock speed. So in 2012, when that happened, we were like, what's going on? Why is this up now? This is way too early. Or what's going on here? Why hasn't this spawned?
Oh, amazing.
So when we had done that, I was like, and for the life of us, we had no idea what was going on. It's like, whoa, why are all these things up? And especially with the zones that have boats in them, cross-zone boats. So there are some boats, I don't know if you remember, but there are some boats where you get on them and then they move throughout the zone and then they hit a zone line and then you appear on the boat on the other side of the zone line and then it just keeps going, right? So people were getting kicked off the boat because those zones were out of cycle. Because one zone was like, okay, yeah, I'm going at this speed, and this other zone is like, yeah, I'm going at this speed. Because that's just happens to be how fast the CPU was going at that time that zone was spawned.
Oh, wow.
So absolutely, it's okay, let me look at everything. It's like, oh, there's an issue here. What's going on? Oh, it's related to timing. Why is there this weird issue with timing? So we're going through and we were racking our brains. It's like, what is going on here? Because running locally, when we just spawn off both those zones locally, yeah, everything's fine because our desktops don't do that.
Yeah.
Our desktops don't do that. And so eventually we were, poking at this, poking at that, poking at this, and I don't even remember. Oh, yeah, this guy's name is Brent Rambo.
Good name.
Rambo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our ops guy. He's actually a meme. Go look him up at some other time. He was in a commercial as a child. Go look up Brent Rambo.
I absolutely will. Written down.
Yeah, our head of ops at the time said, "Oh, did you know that your CPU speed changes based off of load?" And I was like, "Wait, what? What?"
At that point, are you just immediately thinking like, what is that? Like, how many different things are possibly being affected right now?
Right. And so we went back into the code, and luckily it wasn't too many changes. It was a few places where we were doing that weird timing thing. It's like, okay, we need to convert this to using real, like, standard units measurements of time. Let's use the standard OS ways of measuring time and cycles and all that stuff. And so absolutely, it's a bunch of those little stories where it's like, wait, what? Wait, what? Wait, what? Why? Huh? Oh.
It's one of the things I've loved about working on live games, especially ones that I come in and years into it, and you're just like, this shit works this way, really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's on fire, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why the time, the in-game time in EverQuest is different depending on which server you're on. Like the year, not like how old your character is and what
somebody
the
was just asking
EverQuest
about
time
that.
is.
It was like this week, I think someone was asking about that in chat, and so now we know. Awesome.
Yeah, because it's based off of when the server was started.
Fair enough. So I see at least one. There may be more. Question related to Prathan and I'm assuming there've been questions about Holly and stuff like that. My standard line and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but my starting line on that is it's weird in games to work on a game for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. What?
Yeah,
15
yeah,
years? Are you kidding
yeah.
me?
It's
18
very different.
years. So it's like when you work on a game for like 18, when someone that's worked on a game for 18 years moves to a new team or moves to a new game or whatever, new company, I look at it, I'm always kind of like, one, that it's that's a big deal for that individual. This is a big
Yeah,
chunk of their life, and so awesome.
yeah,
But two, I'm never shocked. I'm never going, I wonder what this means. It's just like,
yeah.
so I mean, do I kind of have that covered? Is there any, like, I know the community's been asking, but one, I don't necessarily like, you know, expect much more of an answer beyond that. But I also don't want to put words
Sure.
in your mouth, I guess.
I mean, what's the question
Yeah,
specifically?
it's like people ask, like, did something, did something happen? I'm like, I'm going to guess either one,
Oh no.
nothing happened,
Yeah,
or two, if it did happen, they're probably not going to tell you about the fist fight over the last, like, whatever, cup of coffee and donut that happened in the break room. And he's like, screw it, table flip, I'm out. Like, so
yeah. No, that's absolutely good answer.
cool. um, Yeah, it's just I think the thing that's interesting is the folks that did stay on EQ for as long as they did. One, it's amazing, it's badass, and I know there's still people there that have. And one day maybe, Alan will talk to me. But it's like
Maybe.
it's crazy because it's so rad to be able to work on a game that you love for that long. But the idea of people going to new, especially if like one person goes and then it's like, okay, that person's there, it's like, hey, why don't you come over? It's like, that's kind of always been the industry to me.
Yeah.
um so
It's a very small industry still.
yeah. um cool. And I wasn't picking on your question, I was just, that was that. So Dead Rabbits 10, are there any plans to bring account to account transfers back?
Account to account transfers. Um, there are no immediate plans to do that.
Okay.
Just again, priority, time.
Hmm. Yeah, there is that is a funny comment in chat. Senexa, who knows? Year 25 of EverQuest history, Breathen comes back, and then it's that you never do this industry. I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
Jedis 00, can you remove the limit to list players in zone? At some point, it was changed to only list the first 20 or so. Can you remove the limit to list players in zone? I haven't run into that on Aerodune, I don't think. I
Yeah,
think
I'm not
it
sure what
goes to
that
like
question
40
is.
or when you do who all, but I thought my who all went beyond 20.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact number. Okay, yeah, they're definitely saying that it's a 20 cutoff. Okay,
Is it 20? Okay. For some reason, it
I
seemed like
don't know.
more.
I'd have to look. Uh, Again, that's kind of a numbers thing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Fair
it's
enough.
all. Yeah, it's definitely part of the numbers thing.
You realize I think we're looking at chat channels these days. Like, isn't that, or pics? Is it pics in chat channels? I forget. Like, folks are always like trying to look at the numbers and tell me or ask me about it through different methods. But Seahole asked, hi Jen, can you tell us about your initial foray into EQ? What did you start out playing and where? If you still don't play there, of course. I guess like server.
Yeah, I still play. I will not tell you where I. Well, okay, I'll tell you I play on Lucklin, but my guild does not know that I work on the game. They don't know who I am. uh,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, I'm very, very, very careful about not letting people know who I am when I'm playing on my play account.
Fair enough.
Um, but certainly I came into EverQuest very late, late to the game, late to the party. Uh, I had actually played a lot of other MMOs. I played Asheron's Call for quite a while, from beta to launch, and then for a bit after launch. I played The Realm. I also played. I'm pretty sure the game is dead now. Rubies of Eventide for a while there. Um,
Somebody was just mentioning that. Was that Bunny? Somebody is
oh
always
wow,
mentioning.
somebody else has heard of it.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure Bunny's played everything.
Yeah. So yeah, I played a lot of other games. I had not played EverQuest until very, very late. And when my original main, I played a different main for a while, but my original main was a Vashir Beast Lord. Uh,
Oh, right on.
yeah, so I actually logged in the other day on it, and it was like, wow, so much has changed since I've played on this character. Um, but yeah, so
Cool.
whenever
One
I
more.
can, I try to make a Vashir Beast Lord, but I can't do that on Tlps, so I tend to do a High Elf Magician.
Awesome. Yeah, it's funny. Every single time someone's like, "Oh, Sean, do you know what you're gonna play for Kunark?" Every single time, and this is so smart of me to get it wrong every time. So every time they're like, "What do you want to play?" I'm like, "Oh man, I can't wait to play an XR." And I've never played a Beast Lord, so I wanted. And they're like, "Dude, will you stop getting that wrong?" Right? It's like, "Oh yeah, right. Shit, that doesn't come out to Luckland
Definitely
chat."
Luckland.
So,
Luckland.
yeah, I'm sure as soon as Kunark comes up soon, then I will stop being confused on that one. But I cannot wait to play a Beast Lord when Kunark comes out. Oh my God, I just did again. I didn't even mean to do that. Luckland, Shadows of Luckland. Crap. Again. All right,
Uh,
so a Coital, couple of questions. Well, I'm gonna scan these real quick. All right. So, do you feel that the future of EQ2 experience is confused with adding in critical mitigation in the form of resolve and rapid increases in potency it feels it is? Is the EQ2 TLP item stat rebalance a success or something that will be scrapped in a future date? And if you feel there's a better person to answer these, let me know and we can see about getting them.
yeah, I am not
Okay.
the best person to answer that. What is his forum's name? Engreth. Adam
Okay.
would be probably the person to ask about items.
Cool. All right. We'll work on getting an answer at some point. Sorry, Aquidal. But yeah, I thought that might be the case. Let's see. Bimeth, or Beemeth, are there any immediate plans to upgrade to a 64-bit client? Concern mostly for MS dropping support of 32-bit and DirectX 9.
There are no immediate plans because it's a long project, right? It's probably about a year dedicated of an engineer to convert our client and our servers and all of our support servers and all of our tools to 64-bit. So it's about a year of work. It's not it's a thing that we want to do, but yeah, definitely not at a point where we can actually say, "Hey, 64-bit is coming."
Yeah, fair enough.
But to all the people that are playing on 32-bit systems, here's your fair warning now. Please go to a 64-bit system.
All right.
I don't know when it's going to happen, but eventually it will.
Eventually. Eventually. Okay. So, Sancus EQ zone performance in relation to rating is an increasingly pressing concern for high-end raiders. With more procs, pets, and abilities adding to the server load, many improvements seem to translate directly to performance loss. Are there any plans for alleviating these kinds of things?
I mean, we are trying to alleviate performance issues. It's all a let's diagnose it, let's log it, let's see what's going on, and let's see, where are bottlenecks? Where are we hitting big lag spikes? What's going on here? Is it related to, is it related purely to population? And if it's related purely to population, what are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
What's special about this specific spike versus another specific spike? It's all about drilling in. And that is, that's always like on the kind of back burner. We work on it, but only until recently did we spend like the entire team, like everybody looking at things. And now it's like, okay, well, we've managed to address these really big issues. We need to go get more diagnostics. We need to see, it's like, oh, okay, so we see this gigantic block here. It's really laggy here, but we don't know anything about this specific area. We know, it's like, okay, well, we know that this gigantic area is very laggy, but we don't know what about that gigantic area is laggy. So it's definitely a continual process where it's like, okay, cool, we've addressed these lag spikes. Let's go look at these now. Let's look at these now.
Fair enough.
So,
Bad Luck Jimbo asks, Jenn, what would you say is your ultimate goal as the new head of DPG, and where do you strive to improve over the previous heads of the EQ franchise? It's an interesting question.
That is an interesting question. What is my ultimate goal? Well, let's see. My ultimate goal is to keep the games around forever. Yeah, that's my ultimate goal. And what is different? I really like working for Holly, so I don't know how much different I would be from Holly. I really admired her in how she handled a lot of different things, and being the head, she was absolutely kind of our crap umbrella for a lot of things, and I definitely want to keep that going. But yeah, I don't know. I am a different person, and I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to be different. Where it's like, well, okay, what would Holly do? And it's like, do I want to do that? So, yeah, it's a case by case situation.
All right, fair enough. It's funny the people are talking about crap umbrella and in chat. We need an emoji. It's an interesting role, right? Like you do in different leadership positions, especially in game companies. It's you're also there to try to maybe I'll use the word shield the team from certain things or absorb certain stuff, or you're there as the champion of the team, and it's definitely not easy. I'm not saying that anybody above you is difficult in any sort of way. I don't know any of them, but just I know how it is. So I definitely I think until folks have been in those types of roles, it's easy to just kind of maybe not understand or take for granted. So yeah, it's a tough job.
No, I'm definitely not saying anything bad about G. I mean, working with him has been great. So
yeah, G. Yeah, G. We weren't saying anything bad about you if you're watching.
No, and I wasn't like poked to say that. No, it actually has been a really interesting experience because he and I didn't really work very closely before I became head, and then when I became head, it was like, oh wow, I can talk to him. I can talk to him like I'm just talking to one of my team members now. Whereas before, I was a little hesitant to do that because he owns the company.
Yeah, and the way I took it was just what I found is the CEO or other sort of senior leadership, their job is always to challenge. They're always going to ask for more. They're always going to push for certain things. And then what I've found as a producer and sort of working my way up through that path is my job is to listen to like those challenges, because sometimes it's good to be pushed. It's like having a personal trainer or anybody else, right, that pushes you through beyond your comfort zone. But when it's just not realistic or it's not healthy for the team, to go, yeah, I'm sorry, I understand that, but no, this one's just not going to work.
Yeah.
So, Nianti asked, what is the most difficult system to work on in EQ?
The most difficult system to work on. From an engineering, I'll answer it from an engineering standpoint because I'm not a designer. I don't pretend to be a designer. The most difficult system, I would have to say that's the real estate system. The real estate system, player housing, the customizable guild halls, that is the most difficult system to work on, because it's not character bound, and it touches inventory, which is already a very difficult system to work with. And there were definitely some weird design decisions that I had made. I'm going to say I had made because I made some of them. I helped put that system in. There were definitely some weird engineering architectural things with that make it very difficult to modify. There's definitely it. If you look at the real estate code and then you look at, I don't know, the rest of the code, I don't know, let's say, I can't think of an example. If you look at the rest of the code, it's like, oh wow, this has a very distinct style. It uses very different things and architectural patterns and just naming conventions, and it for C++ guys, it's very heavily templatized, and so our tools have a hard time just telling us things about the code. When we're trying to look up things, it's like, oh, well, we have to resort back to basically doing a text search throughout the source code instead of just using our normal tools that would say, where is this being used? Right. So yeah, that I would say is the hardest system to work with out of all the systems in our infrastructure, our game. So
cool. Fair enough.
Yeah.
And like two questions down, Nyanti, I'm messing your name up. I'm sorry. We'll talk about it later. Also asked, what's your favorite thing you added to the game?
Favorite thing I added to the game?
That same code.
No. No. Real estate system was not the favorite thing. I mean, I like having customizable guild halls, but yeah, no, that's not my favorite thing. I'm going to say favorite thing by impact is the advanced loot system. I know it's going to be super controversial. I know there's a lot of people that still no, need to use the old loot system.
Chat's on your side on this one, I think. It took me like 4 days and 3 tutorials and like everybody in chat holding my hand. And I was like, guys, come on, what is this? Come on. And now I'm like, okay, I'm so happy it's there.
Yeah.
But we've been spending some time going, okay, how would we then redesign this to get all the benefit? And then philosophically, is this really, it's so convenient. I do love it. It is
absolutely
awesome.
Love it. I think it was one of those things where it hit our targets, which is we wanted to get people actually playing the game and less playing their inventory, and that's why we put it in. So that way people are spending less time managing the things in their inventory, managing who gets what in loot, and also cutting down on people that ninja loot things.
True.
So yeah, by impact, that is probably my most favorite thing that I've added.
Right on. Cool. I skipped a question in order to get that one. Common Commander, what is the possibility of releasing all content level locked and all content level locked server?
An all content level locked server. That's an interesting idea. Like all content as in the latest expansion?
Common Commander, I'll be watching in chat for you to respond to that. Lock at 50, 60, 65, 70, all content available.
Huh.
But you cannot go beyond it. Interesting.
Okay, so then 3 months later you get to level 60. Oh, so yeah, so all the expansions, but you're locked at level 50, then so much later you're locked at 60.
Mhm.
It's an interesting idea. Yeah, I mean, get enough people around that idea. Get on the forums. Get on Discord.
And stand right next to the PvP players. It's happening. It's happening. All right. So chat has been challenged. We've got two
Get the
challenges
numbers
going
up.
on now. Get the numbers
Break
up.
the bank.
That's gonna be a new meme. Let's see. So I'm looking at the time. I know we're running right up on the hour. There's still, a good handful of questions here. Um, I don't want to. I know it's your Saturday. I don't want to take you beyond
Yeah,
that.
I mean, that's part of the reason why it's like, hey, do you have a weekend? Because I didn't want it to be, it's like, oh no, I have to go right now because
Okay,
something's on
cool.
fire. So yeah, I can probably stick around for a little bit longer. I might need to take a break in a few minutes though.
Yeah, that's fine. We could take a little break. XXIOU, thank you for the sub. And I will catch up on all the follows towards the end. But the thing was flashing in front of my face, so I couldn't ignore it. Let's see. I'm going to mess your name up again. Bemis? No? Bemis. All right. So ask the question, how close is the TV show Mythic Quest to working at Daybreak?
I haven't seen it. It's on my list to go see. I don't have Apple Plus. I'll have to get it.
Meat.
So if someone wants to say, hey, this is what happened in the summary, I'll be like, okay, yes, I will finally subscribe to Apple Plus and go watch for this show.
Okay, yeah, I think we both have to because it comes up a lot. And it's Bay Meat. I thought you were kidding the first time. Not that I'm picking on your name. I just don't trust chat, especially not Scorn. Let's see. Rhino asks, who makes the best memes on the forums? Be honest.
Who makes the best memes on the forums? That's a random question. I don't know. When I see good memes, it's like, cool. I don't actually see who's been making these memes. When I read the forums, I typically tend to just kind of ignore the names because I don't want it to go, oh, I hate you. I don't want to listen to you right now. That's the biggest thing. I try to ignore that section when there's posts.
Fair enough. Yeah. These young people and their memes, man. Also, it looks like Scorn did trick me into saying the wrong name. Thank you, Scorn. Thank you for also being a moderator who apparently likes to do stuff like that. Sorry, Bay Meath, not meat. Now you got me sweating. Oh. Rhino asked, have you ever had something you wanted to put in the game but got overruled, that you're now going to revisit given your new position of power? Bemis.
I don't know. I kind of have to think about things I was overruled on. I haven't actually sat down and thought about it.
I keep a list. I would recommend in the future that whenever you're fighting your way towards ultimate dominance in an organization, I have a nice list of things that people told you couldn't do that you can then do, and people that you're immediately going to get rid of. That's just me. Let's see. I'm never getting another job in the industry again. People watch this stream, they're like, we're never hiring this asshole. 60 Teen said, what are your thoughts regarding the state of current EQ for new players not trying to play TLP? I think we've been dabbling in and out of that.
Yeah, that's kind of a big question.
Yeah.
Let's see. Current state, I would absolutely love to be able to make the UI easier. That's definitely a thing that I would love to be able to do, but I'm not a UI expert. So, and that's kind of the key, that whoever is advising us on changing the UI needs to not only be a UI expert, but also a EverQuest expert. And that's really hard to find. So there's a
Well,
UI
that's a great
expert
point.
watching this stream that loves EverQuest. You should definitely hit me up.
Okay.
Ping me on the forums, hit me up in LinkedIn. But definitely for a new player that, like, completely new player, never played EverQuest before. Sure, played other MMOs, that's fine. But never played EverQuest before. That's the biggest thing. It's a really hard game to get into on the live servers. You have to know a lot. You have to do your research before getting in, and certainly I think that is probably one of the hardest things when you're first coming in. It's like, what does this do? I don't know what this is. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Why is there another window for this? Or where do I go to run this command? Oh, it's down here in this tiny little box. Or, oh, it's over here in this other window. So, yeah, that's definitely, how I feel about that. I don't know if I answered the question. I don't know where that question was going.
I think it answers an element of it. It's a big question, so that is, I mean, that's one of the things. I do think. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think it's going to address all of it, but it is a good example. And that's one of the things I ran into. I was happy, like I finally came back because of TLP. Just because when I came in on my old character, even as somebody that played, for years, came in and just kind of saw everything and was just like, you know what, I think
It's a lot.
it's a lot,
Yeah.
and I don't know where to start or whatever. So that made, TLP just such a natural opportunity to hop back in. But even then, if I look at all of the stuff that's unused, that's in my, like character sheet or whatever, I'm like, oh, okay. There's a lot of shit that I'm going to wind up learning. James54 said, given the long EQ backlog of enhancements and fixes, what are the current priorities? Are there any standout priorities, or is that a too detailed thing to answer here?
Let's see. Current priorities today. Expansion.
Hmm.
Uh, Finishing up a few more performance issues. Yeah, just trying to go in my head. What are priorities right now? I mean, right now we're kind of in a make things better, so then that way when we actually go like heads down 100% into expansion, that we aren't having to deal with, oh, this thing is now a real issue. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. Let's see. One more, and then I would say if you need to take a break, then that seems good. Or you just let me know. How about that?
Yeah, let's do one more and then we'll take a break and
Cool.
then I'll come back.
Cool. Yeah. I was about to say, like, because I'm always drinking a ton of water, so I
Yeah.
understand the need for breaks. Let's see. Kizant asked, has there been any luck with the current employee search? Is there any talk of the company moving to a remote platform that would allow people out of state or even out of country to work on the game?
We've found definitely some good candidates so far. It's such a big search. And there's definitely a lot of people to go through. And I know our HR people are like, okay, cool. And then they're spending a lot of time just, just vetting everybody.
For sure.
And are there any plans to go to a full remote? There are no definitive plans. We've definitely talked, but there's the whole legal things of, can we actually have employees in this other state? Can we have employees in this other country that need to get figured out?
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, it's something I'm really watching closely, just because it's been something that's been discussed for decades, and now it's because of COVID and stuff like that. You see more companies that are. I know there's ups and downs, and it's a mixed bag, but I do see a number of companies that are showing that they're still productive in some cases. For some people, they're even more productive. And the thing I'm looking at is, for a lot of these, like, hiring scenarios that I've run into in the past, it's like, if we had the ability to just pull the best talent that was interested in our game, and they didn't have to move or whatever, the opportunities it would have unlocked for me as a hiring manager. So I'm kind of pro that. But then again, I'm
Yeah.
also at some point I've got to find another job. So maybe that's why I'm also pushing it as well. I'm like, wouldn't it be rad if you just let me live in like southern Germany and drink beer and then I could work for you in Southern California? That would be so good, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Me personally, I'm for it, but again, it's the logistics of getting there. So
yeah,
yeah, don't have a definitive answer either way.
cool. So, fair enough. I tell you what, we've got I've got the next question on the screen. We'll come back to it. And let's take a quick
Yeah,
break,
let's
I
take a
guess, and
break.
then meet back. All right.
All
Thank you
right,
so
cool.
much. Be right
Thank
back.
you. Yep.
All right, chat. I'm gonna take a break as well. And then I will be back. Continue to play nice, please. All right. I'm back at least. And that'll give me an opportunity real quick. Those of you listening along at home, um, thank you for tolerating the silence. At some point, I am going to go through every single VOD and edit out things like this, and then I'll re-upload everything to YouTube, etc. And definitely want to do that because we're also starting to publish these VODs as audio only on using Anchor to distribute it to like Spotify and I think Google Podcasts or all the basically it does all the sort of distribution to the various platforms for us. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, let me get caught up here. I think Zetha X, it's Mono, Tozol, Valoroth TV, EQ Player 99, Sturmix, Beemith, no word from you, Scorn. Is that yeah? Aim 9, Keebla, ODSLN, Axel Shepherd, Above Top Notch, Crystal Moon, Fubrol, and Comma Commander. Anybody whose name I messed up, feel free to just remind me phonetically in chat. folks that are here fairly consistently know that it takes me a day or two, but I do like to get your names correct because I do tend to read them out as we're doing the stream, just so that folks that are listening at work or whatever can hear what the question is I'm responding to, etc. So let's see. Those of you that are asking some questions that were already covered, here, I'll do this again so that you can find it. So I clip all of these. There is a collection that's got all the VODs. I post them up as soon as I'm done here. Typically, I try to get the VOD into the collection so you can see it there. We're about up to, with this one, we're probably well over 30 hours, or at least over 30 hours of guest appearances. Scorn, thank you for gifting a tier 1 sub to Gavani, but you're still on my list. One sub is not getting you off the list. So that's what happens when we play with people's names. Thank you for the additional sub, Scorn. Still on the list, buddy. We'll talk later. Let's see. All right. So welcome back.
All right.
We are going to go through some more questions. Biggs03, with cleaning up the recent server instability issues, can we have beam kiting back?
Probably not. There was also, the designers also didn't like beam kiting because of balance issues. So it was a two-pronged thing. One, it was causing server issues, and two, it was, causing also very big balance issues.
All right.
So
there you go. You've got an answer. Let's see. Adjacent, this is from Scorn, adjacent to Kazente and Corey, I've been playing EQ forever. I've been around through a lot of forum challenges, tournaments, special events that have been consistently exclusive to citizens of the United States. We're all citizens of Norath, and it's a bit disheartening to be incapable of participating in these things due to those restrictions. Are there any plans to start allowing international players to participate, even with the store items? Shipping international would be appreciated, even at an exorbitant cost.
So we haven't had real plans to do an in-person thing in a while. So yeah, can't talk about that. But for our online things and shipping, again, it is what are we set up to do? We're not as big as we used to be, and especially with contests, with like raffles, and actually we can't even do raffles. What was it? I can't remember what it was, but you would just submit all your things, and then it's like, oh hey, cool. We'll just pull a random name out of the hat, and here you go. Even with that, there are definitely some weird legal issues around what we can and can't do. Okay. So, absolutely. With the past things, with the T-shirts and the vinyl albums, we wanted to be able to ship internationally, but we don't have the setup to be able to do that. Because just even figuring out the customs forms that we had to fill out to ship internationally with the vinyl albums, it's like, how do we fill this out? How do we even do this? Because we're not equipped to do it. This isn't our specific area of expertise. So
fair enough.
Yeah, we want to do it. We just aren't equipped and set up to do it.
Let's see. Thou85, what is the tech stack EQ is written in? Core languages.
Let's see. Core languages, C++. C++, and then tools, it's a blend of C# and Perl and PHP. Yeah, PHP.
Okay. Thou, hopefully that answers your question. Sets a wow. Has there been any thought to make Chrono redeemable for store cash at a reduced conversion rate, essentially allowing Chrono to be sapped for station cash and creating a favorable exchange um, uh, for DP, creating more income versus pure point purchases?
So financially, we have been always told that it's like, no, no. Come up with another plan. No. So yeah, we have to be very careful, and we
Yeah,
have to make sure that we're not breaking any laws.
yeah,
That thing.
yeah.
So
I think there are probably a number of things to be careful of there.
yeah.
Let's see. Camden asks, TLPs have progressively gotten more and more hands-on in terms of nerfs changes as time has gone on. For example, items, drops, abilities being changed, removed that have been there for 10 years worth prior TLPs. EQ had a big rework of their defensive stats, and that didn't go over well on their TLP. Are there plans for this trend of modernizing changes to TLPs to continue further? And are there any limits as to, or as a lot of the changes seem very random? Example, changing enchanter charm pets.
So EQ and EQ2 there's a separate answer for each of those games. So EQ2, at the very beginning, we did start out re-itemizing things, and so to continue, we basically have to continue re-itemizing um, as each expansion gets unlocked in
Okay.
EQ2. Yeah, and for EQ1, I mean, we didn't do massive rehauls on EQ1. We said it's like, nope, can't keep up with it. We'll only have to, we'll only change things that are just really, really exploity, really, really like, whoa, okay, somebody is using this to make ridiculous amounts of plat,
Mm,
or somebody is using this to really throw the balance of the server out of whack. Um, and so that's realistically, it's mainly a light touch on EQ1. It's okay, is this gating? Okay, well, let's fix it. Is somebody using it and being a bad community member and basically ruining it for everyone?
mm,
um, so yeah, it's wherever it's like, okay, nope, we see that you're destroying the economy, or you're destroying the community, or you're destroying our servers. Anytime anybody goes really far out and we, to a level where it's like, oh, wow, no, that's a problem, then we'll go in and, address it.
okay.
But the rest of it, we're generally, philosophically, a light touch for
Okay.
EQ1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and that's one of those questions that, as you're answering, I'm always naturally waiting to see if there's a response to the answer. We'll keep an eye out, but yeah. So,
Yeah.
um, let's see. Um, Vmyth asked, "Who is on your enemies list?"
Who's on my enemies list?
Just because I have an enemies list does not mean that everybody does, guys. Do you?
Yeah, I don't have an enemies list.
Okay.
There's, there's just too much going on in the world to just keep a grudge, because it's so exhausting for me.
Yeah,
It's just so exhausting.
I used to get tired holding a grudge, and then I just started writing them down. And now I'm not tired at all, but anytime I need them, they're there. So just pro tip, if you need it, use it.
Okay.
Beemith says, or asked also, can we get slash follow improved?
Can we get slash follow improved? Well, it's directly tied to NPCs and how they path, right? So slash follow uses the same NPC pathing stuff, and it is absolutely a 1 second. 1 second. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Uh, so it's absolutely a zone by zone thing, and so yeah, how we improve pathing is we go through every single zone and repath it, and that's not going to happen because that's more time than anybody has for anything. I can't even give you an estimate how long it would take to repath every single zone in the game. So, and then
Yeah.
alternatively, we can write a new algorithm to potentially use it, but then it's like, okay, so what data does that pathing come from, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Fair enough. Um, let's see. One more question. Jen, as someone that has been a TLP player only for a while while I'm wanting to give current expansion content. Am I reading this wrong? Wait a second. Wanting to give current expansion content instead, would I feel at home playing a bard with all of the content I have missed? Or perhaps better said, do classes still feel similar to the way they did back in the day, or have they expanded greatly? So let me let me let me see on that one. So are you saying you've been playing only TLP, and I don't know. You're gonna have to rephrase this question, folks. Sorry about that one. Um, I did not get it right. Um, Live versus TLP differences. You see that in chat, Jen?
I don't see
Oh,
that.
he's wondering if the game is similar to the way it was back in the day.
It's not exactly the same um, as it was back in the day. There's certainly some things that we just can't support on TLPs due to the
Mm,
way the architecture um, has changed. Like we can't bring back corpse runs. That's a thing that where you have to actually go and get your items. We can't do that without a lot of re-architecting a lot of the current systems, like
mm,
inventory.
right.
uh, so yeah, I mean the differences between TLP and live. Well, I mean the obvious big difference is the expansions, the expansions and the features, the features available to you. Those are the biggest differences, and then also where everyone is, where the player base is. So
Fair enough.
yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Let's see. I think that covers it. I think there's one question that's in here. Mods skipping that one. Just because I don't know how to ask that one in the best way. And then generally speaking, there's a decent amount of stuff that's popped up. Hasn't necessarily popped onto this list here, but when people are asking about botting, there are always questions about botting.
Hmm.
And I've often sort of given my take during streams on botting.
Hmm.
And I've got sort of two things that I tend to say, and it's kind of anecdotal and it's just me. But I'd be curious to see if you got something else. One is I've never known a time where there wasn't botting,
Yeah.
and I haven't worked at a company where there wasn't botting. Um, maybe Wizard 101 there wasn't some botting, like when I was at King's Owl. It could be that there wasn't rampant botting on a kid's Wizard game, maybe. But let's see. Bobby says Star Stable botting, not botting, but all sorts of other hacking. The kids love to hack. So yeah, dude, I've got some stories. So the thing I say is one, I've heard a lot of stories about like Brazil or Aradune. I've only played on Aradune. A lot of basically my entire experience on Air so far, and I know that's limited, it's one data point. Um, it's been pleasant. It's been good.
Good.
I've found groups when I wanted
Yeah.
to find groups. I've been able to complete quests. As Chance heard a million times, I've finished my Paul of Apollo. It took me like 25 or 30 hours of camping.
Mm.
And there was once or twice when I was like, it started to get busy in there. I have the benefit of living in Sweden, so I'm off hours, but there were once or twice when some people sort of were standing at the spawn. I'm like, are we about to DPS race? And they're kind of like, yeah, probably. I'm like, all right, well then I'm done for the day, right? Like I'm not even going to bother
Yeah.
with you. And then I came back the next day or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so all of my data is anecdotal and positive. Um, and then when I say like generally speaking, it's always been an issue. There's always going to be issues, etc. I guess the thing that comes up a lot is when there are blatant, like crazy examples of it, people feel like they've reported it and maybe something's not happening. What insight can you give us on like sort of your thoughts on it from your side, and then what about these instances of people saying, "Hey, we've reported this person. They're 800 boxing in this one zone or whatever," and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I've babbled enough. Sorry, go ahead.
So certainly some instances where people are saying they're reporting it, they haven't actually been reporting it. I'm not saying that this is all the instances there, but certainly some of the instances are that. Um, Yet it's like, okay, you reported it. Where, when, what account? Because we can't find it. um, and then the other people that have been reporting it, it's like, okay, well, no, they're not definitively botting. There's a bit of, it's like, okay, are they reporting it because they just don't like this person, or are they reporting it because they actually were botting? And in every instance has to get investigated. And as our CS people are going through, it's like, okay, were they botting? I don't know. Let's see. And so anytime that you can give us a clear, definitive case where they are botting, it's like, okay, yeah, no, report it. You should. um, don't name and shame on the forums because that's against our forum rules. But in your petition, if you're recording, if you're streaming, even if you have what's I can't remember the the software where it's like, oh, I'm not recording, but actually go back and actually save to disk the past 10 minutes or the past 5 seconds, or I don't remember.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like, if you have that, do it. Record it. Record it,
Yeah.
send it to, put it in your petition to CS, and they'll take a look. And if it looks like, oh yeah, clear case of botting, they'll suspend them, they'll ban them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always those areas where it's like, no, this could actually be people that are playing together. This could be people that are in the same house and they're just well coordinated. But then there are clear cases where it's like, nope, definitely botting,
Yeah.
suspend, ban.
And again, as a former member of CS, I also know it's it's difficult sometimes, and then on some of the cases, it is just a matter of, for us, we are fortunate enough that we had one or more GMs per server, and you kind of get used to like making your rounds and going around and checking stuff, etc.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know like the degree to which you're able to dedicate that sort of effort or have that familiarity. And like you were saying at the beginning of the stream, anybody who missed it, watch the VOD later. Um, you know, CS does tend to stay inundated. Though we did have a fun experience. We did a group run where it was an unassisted group where we basically ran level 1 to 50 in 24 hours, um,
Wow.
just to kind of show. And so like that was recreating like the Air
Mm-hmm.
race to 50 run. And so I was well, all right, not all of us made it to 50, Bobby, you're right. So at least one of us fell asleep, Bobby. And so yeah, it was cool. So I got brought along for that. It was a great learning experience for me and being able to see it, but it was funny because um yeah, people thought we were bots for a little bit as well. We were such a tight knit tactical group. Um So, all right, let's see. We've got at least one or two more questions, I think. I keep looking up the chat now. Let's see. Is this an actual question, Scorn? I'll try to read it. It's a big block of text. The CRT team has remained largely unchanged for quite some time. I don't believe anyone has been added to it since 2016 or so. Does the team see value in working closely with the player base in this manner? Or have you found beta interaction with vocal members of each class efficient in addressing class balance, quality of life issues?
Class balance, definitely need to talk to the designers for here. Talk to Aristo. Well, he doesn't respond to things. Aristo, Ed, and then also, Chris Black / I don't know what Ryan's form handle is. Talk to him. These are the guys that you want to talk to about specifically class balance things. But for other issues, yeah, absolutely, CRT has been a big help. And Dreamweaver is working on rebuilding that program.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool. All right, so I've hit the end of the questions that were in the mod channel. Mods, thank you so much for grabbing those. It definitely made this possible. Otherwise, I have no idea how I would have been able to keep up with it. All right, so I think this is 2.5 hours of your time. I'm so appreciative of it. I'm curious, is there anything else that we missed? Is there anything else you want to discuss or say? And I'll keep an eye out for anything pressing in chat as well if you want to. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, this has been a great time. Love being on here. This is actually one of my first live interviews since I became head of studio.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so congrats to that. And yeah, thank you. I've been catching up on a lot of the old streams, and it's like, oh, hey, it's Barker. Oh, hey, it's McP. I haven't talked to these guys in so long. And I was like, oh, yeah, they look good. They look well. I'm glad.
Yeah,
So,
no, it's super cool. Because
yeah.
you've seen them more recently than I have. Some
Yeah.
of these folks, I'm like, dude, I haven't seen you in forever.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, I'd be, once all the questions queue up again, I'd be glad to come on again, but not for a
Oh,
while.
fantastic. Yeah, no, that's fine. I definitely appreciate you coming on here. And folks in chat, thank you so much. Great questions. I wasn't looking up for all of it, but it seems like folks came in and definitely had questions for us. We're cool. I've been stoked on the Twitch experience just because people have just been really rad, to be honest. So hopefully this was a positive experience, and that's one of those things that folks, back at the company can kind of look at and go, all right, this is something that other folks can feel comfortable coming on as well. Naturally, I'm going to, sort of push to try to always have folks on whenever possible. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
All right.
I tell you what, I'm usually like, it's like shutting this whole thing down. This is like the most difficult part for me. I'm like, all right, so how do we high five, say goodbye, and then like shut it down in a way where it's like relatively professional and smooth. And so what we'll do is, I guess I'll just say thanks again for being on. This has been fantastic. It's been super cool getting to know you.
Yeah.
We haven't really met before this, so thanks a ton for coming on. And I'll follow up with you offline and probably just thank you 5 more times, and then we'll just kind of see how it goes.
No, thank you. It was a pleasure. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, Jeff.